Good morning. This is your daily weather briefing for Wednesday, March 23rd, 2016. We have a lot of weather to cover today, so we're going to get started immediately with the current weather. Let's get started, and here's our current weather map for this 14Z. Let's start in the west here. A few scattered showers coming on shore with an upper level low that's moving into Canada. We'll see that increase throughout the day today as we have a strong jet coming into the Washington, Oregon coast. But basically, south of there and southwest of there, some nice cool weather. Kind of a nice change coming in. I was out this morning and had a really crisp morning out here in Phoenix, so it was quite beautiful this morning. Kind of a nice break from the heat we've been having over the last several days, but we expect that to change later. The real action today is in the Central Plains, and right now there's not much going in the warm sector. That's going to be later today and tomorrow, but the current big action is happening with the snow that's taking place around Denver and southeastern portions of Wyoming, near blizzard conditions taking place. Snow, ice, and rain extends all the way into Michigan, and some rain out here off the northeast coast. Here, north of that front, the weather is cold. Below that front, it's nice and warm and summer and spring-like. We have temperatures ranging in the warm sector from the low 40s to, or excuse me, upper 40s down to the low 70s along the Gulf Coast. Mostly generally clear skies. Well, clear conditions as far as no precipitation, but there are some low-level clouds out there as the onshore flow kicks in from the Gulf of Mexico associated with this low. Speaking of this low pressure system, I was looking at low pressure forming out of the Kansas, central Kansas, around Hays, Kansas. Pressure right now is forming around 994 millibars. So this is an intense low that's forming in the central portion of the United States. Looking at the watch warning map, just a lot going on here in the Central Plains. Winter storm warnings extend all the way from Michigan back towards Colorado, where there's actually a blizzard warning in effect. We expected that with these really strong, powerful winds. Winter weather advisories into the mountains of Colorado, winter storm watches in a couple of counties, winter storm warnings in a couple of counties, and also winter storm warnings in portions of Wyoming, especially around the Casper area, and winter weather advisories surrounding that. Now, the big ticket item is the high wind warnings that are now in effect for Nebraska all the way into the panhandles, with very strong winds today from gusting up to 60 miles per hour. And because of the winds and the dry air, there's quite a few fire weather watches and warnings and red flag warnings in effect for the potential of wildfires that could take place because of those dry conditions as well as the high winds. There's also wind advisories in effect for those regions also. And then we continue the flash flood advisories and warnings associated with the rivers and tributaries that are associated with the flooding that we had a couple of weeks ago with that event. But that's pretty much it for right now at this point in time as far as watches and warnings. Looking at the eastern satellite, really in the northern tier, associated with the stationary front slash warm front, it has most of the precipitation at this point in time. Looking at the central portion of the United States and south central portion, this is low-level clouds with some drizzle out here along the Gulf Coast here, but not much activity taking place at this time. Looking on the west coast at 14Z, we have that strong storm system moving into Canada out of the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of Alaska, with a strong jet that's going to be penetrating Washington and Oregon later today. But most of the weather south of really Eureka, California, southwestern towards Arizona are going to remain clear and some cooler temperatures today, which is going to be a nice change. Looking at the radar, again, we noticed this earlier today. Most of the activity is across the central portion of the United States, and a lot of heavy snow right now falling in Colorado, several inches per hour there at this time. Mixed precipitation out here along the warm front slash stationary front, but no thunderstorm activity or anything like that at this point in time, so nothing significant going on. Now, segueing into our severe weather analysis, the severe weather risk for today is we have a slight risk of severe thunderstorms extending all the way from Springfield down Illinois down into Tyler, Texas. A marginal risk surrounding that area, and then a larger area of general thunderstorms surrounding even those areas, extending all the way into Lansing, Michigan, back to Dodge City, Kansas, which some of this will be in the form of snow, thunder snow, and then down towards Corpus Christi, Texas. Looking at tomorrow's risk here, that risk shrinks a little bit and mainly focuses over Alabama, portions of central Tennessee, and south central portions of Kentucky. And then there's a marginal risk that extends all the way from Cleveland down towards the Gulf Coast here. And then a larger risk of thunderstorms extends across the eastern portion of the United States down towards Florida. We'll look at those parameters for tomorrow. We're going to focus on today's event. Now, looking at the surface dew points at this point in time, a couple of things I want to say here. If we were looking at dew points in the mid 60s or higher with this type of event, we would be talking a very significant high risk event that would be happening today. The parameters are just right, the shear values are just right, helicity values are just right. The thing that is lacking is the instability. And that is going to be the major player today that determines whether thunderstorms get extremely frisky or not. Right now we're looking at dew points ranging from the upper 40s down to the mid 60s, and those mid 60s are hugging along the Texas coast at this point in time and not making a lot of penetration to the north. And not only that, the thickness value or the density of this layer of moisture is not very thick at this point. So a lot of these dew points are going to be dropping throughout the day here. Really, I think the significant dew points will be more out here towards the east where the slight risk is. But again, I think how thick that boundary layer becomes is going to be an important factor for what kind of thunderstorms we have later today, what kind of instability we have later today. Looking at the current convective available energy, there's really none at all whatsoever out there. Just a few pockets of some isolated areas there, but there's really not much to speak of at this point in time. And then looking at the convective inhibition, there's hardly any of that either. There are some pretty significant areas around the Kansas City, Topeka area, which is going to put a lid on the atmosphere there, and some out here by Oklahoma, which will prevent probably storms from focusing there. But really everywhere else, it's pretty much, there's not a lot of inhibition whatsoever. However, I want to look at the 6-hour HRRR forecast model, and we do see CAPE values increasing and increasing quite significantly around the Kansas City area. Values get anywhere from between 1,000 to 1,200 joules per kilogram, and then in anything from Tulsa, Oklahoma down towards Dallas to Waco, these values increase all the way up between 1,500 and 2,000 kilograms or joules per kilogram. So CAPE is expected to increase later today. Another important factor to look at is the current storm relative helicity. Values are way over 100 or 150 units. We're looking at values at close to around between 450 and 500. So, storms that do form will definitely rotate today. If they become surface-based, that's when we have to worry. Right now, we're looking at mainly a damaging wind and large hail event. Once they do form. And I do think thunderstorms will form today. It's just if they can become surface-based. If they become surface-based, we need to watch them carefully. Those storms that become surface-based on radar have the potential to produce tornadoes. And if they produce them, they could become quite significant if they become isolated supercells. So that potential is there, and we need to throw that out there at this point in time, even though we have a slight risk. Do not let the slight risk make us think that this event is nothing significant. It could become significant and ramp up quickly if the cap breaks, and that's the thing we have to talk about. Looking at the lifted indices are pretty nominal at this point. They range from around 1 to -1, so the atmosphere is not super primed at this time. And then looking at the EHI values, again, because there's no instability, the EHI values are nothing at this point, but I do expect this to increase later on today. Again, going back to the synoptic scale of parameters, we have a screaming low-level jet right now of between 60 to some areas up to about 75 knots across the Central Plains. Now, what's interesting about this, though, is the trajectory. The trajectory of this low-level jet is out of the southwest, and that's important because it's pulling up a lot of dry air into this level, and that's creating quite a significant cap of warmer dry air at about 850 millibars on up. And when I looked at the skew T plots from Springfield uh, um, well, actually not in central Oklahoma, or excuse me, central Illinois to Little Rock into the Dallas area. Um, there is a huge cap that I think is going to be very difficult for the atmosphere to overcome, and is going to need the upper level support to flip that atmosphere. The other aspect of this is we have a lot of speed shear loft, but we do not have a lot of uh, directional shear at this point in time. I think the directional shear will become more significant as time goes on. If you were to draw a line from Springfield to St. Louis down to Little Rock to Shreveport eastward, directional shear will begin to increase as the time goes on, and that's where I think the greater tornado threat will become down the road. However, because it's going to be moving in towards the evening time, instability is going to be waning. So again, this is kind of a touchy-feely situation. Parameters are not quite lining up correctly. They're strong and significant, but they're not quite lining up significantly or correctly so that we have a significant event take place. Looking at the mid-level winds, we have a really potent mid-level jet between 110 to 120 knots out here by New Mexico. So the venting of thunderstorms, not a problem whatsoever across Missouri, Arkansas, and Oklahoma, and whatsoever, and even in Illinois. So we'll definitely have thunderstorms that will be able to be supported once they get going. But again, we have to get those lower parameters, the surface parameters, to be in play there. Now I put on here the 12-hour HER model forecast of the radar here, and not sure if this is going to be in play or not here. Obviously, blizzard conditions across Nebraska here. I think those winter storm warnings will be transferred over to blizzard warnings later on today. Kind of concerning here, though, south of the warm front and just north of it, we do have thunderstorms that do form in a line from south of Des Moines down to Jefferson City to Springfield to just east of and southeast of Tulsa down to Sherman, Oklahoma. These thunderstorms in Missouri are broken, and that's going to be significant. Shear values, helicity values will be well supportive of rotating storms. It's just the precipitation and instability, will it be there? So again, we'll have to monitor these storms as they form later today, as they could become severe and most likely will become severe. Just whether they produce tornadoes or not, we don't know at this point in time. It is possible later today that we might see that part of that slight risk increase to a enhanced risk later today if things can really get going. So we'll just have to monitor that. Now let's look at the aviation forecast today. Right now there's no convective segments in effect, but we do expect that to change across the central plains later today, especially between Illinois and Missouri and Arkansas, and maybe portions of Oklahoma and Texas later today. Turbulence there's not a factor today. There's no segments in effect, but I do expect turbulence, moderate to severe turbulence from 18,000 feet across portions of Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas today, especially with the upper level and mid-level jet. No icing is a problem at this point in time. There's no icing segments in effect. Let's look at the 5-day forecast here. Again, looking at today's forecast, we've got a very potent mid-level low at 500 millibars with a lot of vorticity moving into Kansas and Oklahoma later today at 1 p.m. And then we have a very significant surface low that's going to drop down to about 988 millibars with blizzard conditions to the north of it. Very windy conditions across the warm sector, with winds gusting between 30 and 60 miles per hour in some areas. So this is a significant event. Even though we don't have thunderstorms forming, those winds are going to be strong, and so those alone can produce damage. So any thunderstorms that can tap into that, it's going to have a lot of energy with them. Looking at Thursday, the upper level low begins to decrease a little bit in intensity, and we still have several significant vorticity spokes that move around that, so that'll spark thunderstorms throughout the day. But a lot of the energy is being pushed to the north of that slight risk. So I think tomorrow the slight risk is going to be conditional based upon what kind of instability will be there tomorrow. Mostly, I think it's going to be a hail and damaging wind threat, but tornadoes can't be out of the question. We just have to monitor that. The low will be the mid-level low, or excuse me, the surface low will be decreasing. Now, the one thing that we notice here is the surface low is a little bit further to the south than what it has been in past models, and that's a little bit more concerning, being that right now it's around Chicago, whereas it was a little bit further to the north yesterday. So, again, we'll have to see where the parameters line up tomorrow. If they land on it just right, we could get more of a significant event. So we'll have to watch it. It could go conditional or marginal. It could go enhanced. So we'll have to watch where that plays tomorrow. Looking at the extended forecast, starting with Friday, mostly zonal flow across the United States, with some scattered low pressure systems at the surface. Mostly snow associated with the polar front across the northern tier of the United States. Our main low that was in the central portion of the United States rapidly fires off towards the northeast here, but mostly rain across the eastern portions of the United States with snow to the north. Looking on Saturday, we have a low pressure system that's beginning to form out here in the Four Corners states, and unfortunately, not a lot of precipitation is going to be falling with this. So Arizona and New Mexico are going to remain dry and windy again, but at least the temperatures will be coming down. The temperatures won't be so high. Looking at the surface features, a low pressure system will be forming out here in New Mexico with upslope flow, which will begin to see some snow form out here in Colorado with cooler temperatures along a frontal system that's moving into the central and United States and also the Midwest. Flow is going to remain kind of southwest and onshore here, so we'll see some precipitation along Florida with that frontal boundary that's kind of weakening, disintegrating, so there'll still be some scattered showers and thunderstorms, but nothing severe at this point in time. Looking at Easter, now we have a very potent low that's going to be coming out of the Four Corners region into the Central Plains. Again, we're going to have to look at the moisture return here and see what kind of moisture return we can get. We could get some severe weather on Easter that could form across portions of Arkansas, Texas, and eastern portions of Oklahoma again tomorrow on Easter. So we'll have to watch that, be alert to that. There is, again, we've got flooding that took place down here, so there's a lot of moisture in the soil here. So that could replenish the atmosphere. This frontal boundary is going to be kind of stalled down here along the southern portion of the coast, so moisture will be, kind of coagulating along the Gulf Coast here to be pushed not that far northward. There's not a strong surface low, but you don't need a strong surface low to kick off severe thunderstorms. So it just doesn't mean a widespread severe weather outbreak, but you could get some pretty potent, frisky storms out here. Looking at Monday, that upper level low now moves towards the central portion of southeast, and I've got the wrong chart here, but that low moves towards Alabama and Georgia, and again we could have some isolated severe thunderstorms. Nothing super powerful, not overwhelming, but they could be quite strong as it moves in around 1 p.m. on Monday. Probably earlier in the morning, the instability will be a little bit lower. Again, showers and thunderstorms will be across that region. We do have a stronger upper level low that'll be moving into the northwest and will be coming down across the Intermountain West later on to the Four Corners region later on Monday. But again, I don't think the southwest will see any kind of precipitation associated with it because it'll be pretty much over land, so it won't be bringing a lot of precip. Most of the precip will be towards the northwest with snow and scattered showers there. So giving a final summary of today, the severe weather potential today, tomorrow, and maybe on Easter. We need to really watch today and tomorrow and see how things translate later today. High fire danger continues over the southwest, central, and southern plains. That will continue, especially in the panhandles, as the weather continues to remain dry and the winds are quite strong in that area. The pattern remains active for the northwest over the next several days and the central plains eastward. So, we'll have a lot of transitions with some scattered showers and thunderstorms and snow and so forth. We're in the middle of spring, so we will remain active at this point in time. I don't see any significant storms coming in and possibly later in midweek next week, so we'll have to watch what kind of severe weather activity takes place with that. But that's it for now. We'll keep you posted throughout the day as the severe weather potential and begins to develop later today, and we'll keep you advised as the day goes on. Thank you for watching.